The bride, Emily, graduated from junior high school with great grades. A junior high school graduate. Oh no, I thought to myself. I regretted not checking her profile introduction sooner. And then I saw Emily's weak spot. It was just about to slip out of my mother-in-law's mouth when our eyes met. I'm Emily, now 28 years old. My husband, Mark, who is 2 years older than me, and I are in the middle of our wedding. My mother-in-law was staring at me with a cold look in her eyes. I could feel her gaze all over me. Honestly, I can't stand my mother-in-law. Mark is a doctor. We met through work, hit it off, and got married. It's the usual story of how people fall in love. But at our first meeting, Mark's mom started criticizing me right away. Does she work for a proper company? If you're going to pick someone, pick a doctor or at least a registered nurse. An assistant nurse isn't good enough. A girl working at a regular company, she must have tricked you, Mark. Those were the first words she said to me. That's rude, I said. I'm the one who fell in love and asked her to marry me, Mark said, upset. Do you really think you can have a marriage just from a fling? The difference in our education makes us different kinds of people. I was shocked. The idea that the difference in education makes people different kinds of people seemed to be my mother-in-law's favorite line. And her favorite thing to mention was, my husband graduated from Harvard. To her, a Harvard graduate was the ultimate, the king of the world, the strongest person on earth. Did you know that if you graduate from Harvard, you can get any job you want? But as you go lower in university rankings, there are jobs you just can't get. The worst is when you look at your future and see fewer choices, but at least you have the most options if you go to Harvard. By the way, what about your father? What? He finished high school, right? Oh my gosh, he only finished high school, she said, putting her hand over her mouth and laughing. Only finishing high school limits your options so much. When she brought up my dad's education, she didn't even ask about mine. Whether that was good or bad, my mother-in-law was just unbelievable. But I still loved Mark deeply. She was the problem, but we didn't have to live together. I figured we'd just get through the wedding and only see each other on holidays, or so I thought. I had no idea that a bomb was about to drop on our wedding day. It happened during the introductions of the bride and groom. Emily, the bride, graduated from junior high school with excellent grades. I could already tell my mother-in-law wouldn't let this go. Let's enjoy the party, she said. As soon as the food was served, she came over to us. So I heard. Yep, I'm sure you did. My mother-in-law flared her nostrils and glared at me. So she only finished junior high school. Is that even possible nowadays? Her words weren't surprising. When I first met Mark's parents, her education makes us different people idea was clear. I had expected something like this. Sorry, I said back. What did you say? My husband graduated from Harvard, and my son is a doctor. You don't even compare to our standards. Just finishing junior high is the lowest kind of education. I told you, education makes us different. Having someone like you join our family will ruin our genetic future. My mother-in-law's voice got louder. People around us started looking overhearing the conversation. Mark, worried about the situation, started to speak. Mom, what you don't know is Emily is. But before he could finish, the host stepped in, sensing the tension, and said, let's move on to the next part of the program. I nodded at the host, and with a smile, I urged my mother-in-law to go back to her seat. You don't need to tell me, junior high graduate, she sneered. After the ceremony, I'll talk to you about your divorce. I can't stand the thought of our family's future being ruined by someone like you. My mother-in-law turned and walked away, her dress swishing behind her. I'm sorry, Emily, Mark apologized. It's fine, you don't need to apologize, I said with a smile, watching my mother-in-law go back to her seat, looking pleased with herself. I whispered to myself, I'll make you understand, just wait and see. I smiled to myself. The party continued, and it was time for the congratulatory speeches. The host read out the greetings clearly. Congratulations on your marriage. Looking back, I could see her paying attention to every detail, even the little things. Public Relations Manager at Diamond Holdings, the host continued. My mother-in-law stood up proudly. I'm so happy to hear about your marriage. I've worked with your company for 6 years, and I'm grateful for all your help in our ads. Wishing you both a wonderful life. Director of Public Relations at McCoskey and Markson, the host added. My mother-in-law looked ready to take off running. We've received many other messages, but I'll just introduce the names, the host said. Then the names of big companies kept coming up. My mother-in-law looked shocked, almost like she was going to fall over after hearing all the congratulatory messages. She stormed over to our table, her face full of disbelief. Her husband, a Harvard graduate, tried to stop her, but she completely ignored him and practically screamed at me. "All right, what's going on here? You need to explain this to me." She was talking to me as if I were the bad guy. "What do you mean? What's going on?" I was about to argue back when my husband interrupted. "That's why I asked you earlier. Don't you know? Emily is in commercials for companies that don't use celebrities. She's a well-known actress in the industry." "What?" My mother-in-law blinked rapidly, clearly shocked by his words. She probably hadn't listened to anyone before, so this was the first time she was hearing it. Every time we met her, she would only talk about Harvard. She never understood anything about us. My husband, after all this time, is talking about something like this to his own mother. "How funny is this?" I said. "I met Emily because she was in a commercial for a beauty clinic," I explained. "I tried to tell you all this, but all you ever talked about was her parents' education." "Exactly," I sighed, taking a deep breath. "What's wrong with me finishing junior high school?" I asked. Then my mother-in-law, in a loud and unsteady voice, yelled, "I already told you, if you think about your future, going to Harvard gives you the most options." "All right, the future," I muttered. It's like she thought I hadn't considered my own future at all. I really needed to make her understand this. Taking a deep breath, I began. "So after university, you'd start looking for a job, right? And once you graduate at 22, you finally enter the workforce. If you want to go to Harvard for a career, that makes sense. But why does Harvard matter more than your future career?" I wanted to be an actress. I began working toward my dream right after graduating from junior high at 16. I didn't hesitate to decide what I wanted to do and started right away. I was able to start working and contributing to society early. Harvard is one of the best schools in the world, and it takes incredible effort to get there. But I worked hard too. I don't mean you criticizing me just because I only finished junior high. I'm not confident about my looks. That's why I fought with my acting skills, appearing in commercials and reenactment dramas to become the top actress in the field. I studied acting while working part-time jobs, even going to a movie theater with just a piece of bread. You have no idea how much effort and motivation it took to push through those uncertain times. I want you to stop looking down on me just because I'm a junior high graduate. It's true that junior high graduates have less formal education, but they get a head start in working. The determination and courage of a junior high graduate is what makes us proud and strong. It's wrong to judge people based on their education. Then I changed the subject. "You keep saying, 'My husband is. My husband is.' So what have you worked hard for?" "Oh well," she mumbled. "Well," I chuckled. "Shouldn't you say, 'I worked hard to raise my kids'?" Although I meant it sarcastically, she looked at me like I had just helped her. "That's right," she proudly said. "I worked hard raising my children." There was a brief pause. "You didn't work hard," Mark intervened. This was based on what I'd heard from him. He explained, "You always said my father graduated from Harvard. Work hard. I expect more from you. You were tough on me, but didn't do much for me. I became a doctor, but I was always afraid I wouldn't meet your expectations." So when asked if you worked hard raising your children, you couldn't answer right away. "No," she mumbled. When people's weaknesses are exposed, they try to hide them with emotions. My mother-in-law was no exception. She screamed, losing all control. "Harvard. They're the best. Harvard is great." She was cornered and kept repeating the same thing like a broken record. Her loudness was irritating. "If you're going to act like that, it would be better if you stayed quiet." It was my father-in-law who finally stopped the noise. "You're not a Harvard graduate," he said, grabbing her by the shoulders and pulling her away from the table. "That's enough." "Hey," she yelled at him. He calmly stopped her and spoke gently. "You changed after we got married. When I first saw you working hard at the flower shop, you were so charming. You weren't a great cook, but you learned from me. I married you because I saw how dedicated you were. But after we married, all you said was, 'My husband is a Harvard graduate.' You even said it to our son. Do you have anything that's really your own?" Her eyes went wide, and she shouted at him, spitting as she spoke. "I was chosen by you, a Harvard graduate. That's my greatness. Harvard chose me. My father-in-law sighed, looking exhausted. I'm great because Harvard chose me. You care more about the name of Harvard than anything else, don't you? It seemed like he had made up his mind. Maybe this is how marriages fall apart. After sending Mark off to start his new life with his wife, it was time for the two of us to go our separate ways. When this wedding is over, we'll talk about our divorce. It's not about Mark and Emily. It's about us. Mother-in-law's body started shaking, and just as she was about to shout, my own mother burst into the scene. "Whoa, you people," she shouted loudly, standing between my mother-in-law and me. "Mom," I gasped in surprise. "How dare you act like this at my daughter's wedding?" She looked around the room. Everyone was watching silently. Since my mother-in-law had turned into a loud, shrieking mess, no one dared to speak up. Well, it's not surprising at a wedding. Who would want to fight in front of so many people? My mom seemed absolutely furious. "Today is the day to celebrate my daughter. Don't you think so?" my mother said, glaring at my father-in-law. "And her in-laws ruined the wedding. What do you think you're doing?" "My apologies, I'm so sorry," father-in-law said, lowering his head. But even his apology didn't calm my mom down. "Yes, it's true my daughter only graduated from junior high. I told her that if she wanted to study acting, she should finish high school and get to know the world a little better first. But Emily made up her mind, and since she said she wanted to pursue it, I've supported her as much as I could." Before my mother-in-law could speak, my mom cut her off. "You said Harvard is great because they're the smartest, right? Well, listen closely." Her voice was as loud as my mother-in-law's constant complaining. "My daughter taught herself French because she said it was necessary for acting. Now she's fluent. I don't think she should be looked down upon just because she graduated junior high, especially with her level of French. She's fluent in French. That's not easy, and most people would never expect it from someone like her. I did everything I could to improve my acting, and that's how I became fluent in French," my mother added. "So I want you to put aside your academic prejudice." The room erupted in applause. "We're leaving," I said. "I can't stand to watch this anymore." Father-in-law bowed to my mother and dragged my mother-in-law out of the hall. That's how our wedding ended. My friends congratulated me, and I was so happy to have worn a wedding dress. Afterwards, my father-in-law divorced my mother-in-law. She had spent too much time clinging to the name value of Harvard and feeling special because of it. She couldn't manage on her own anymore. She went back to her hometown far away. Even Mark, her son, was so hurt by her that he told her he wouldn't give her any money for living expenses, even though she raised him under the idea that Harvard is the best. I continued working as an actress in commercials. Sometimes I played a dentist, a fish shop manager, or a crime scene victim. I did all sorts of roles. Amidst all of this, I found out I was pregnant. In life, academic qualifications are important, but basing your whole value on them isn't. We should always work on improving ourselves. Tomorrow will be better than we were today. By working hard, we'll become even better than before. I gently place my hand on my growing belly. Tomorrow it will grow even bigger, and a happier day will come.